Hi friends, this is Leela. Welcome to my channel leelawebdev. So we have successfully completed this form validations thing and our form is working as expected. So now it's time for us to submit the form. So all the client side validations and all the things are completed. Now it's time for us to submit the form data to the server. Now here if you try to see the form validations, what we have learned is about the required min length, max length, pattern, and the min and max attributes. So these are the attributes which are primarily used for the client side validations. Now if I try to submit this form, so it is showing this all things, and our form, everything form is working as expected. So what are the requirements we have did it? So it is working all as expected. So let's try to do it age 23 or something like this. Now if I try to submit this form, okay, so it should be greater than 30. Okay, let's try to take this 32. So now when I try to submit this form, so the form data is able to submit this one, right? So now if you try to see it, so we are able to see some query string. So this is called as query string, question mark name is equal to and percent, like this it is able to set it. So this is nothing but what I can say is when the form method is a get request. So this is called as a get request. So normally we have two types of requests, so which we can send it to the server. So in two ways we can send it to the server, that form data. One is the get request, so in which we can able to see in the form like question mark query meters, and also the another method is the post. If you don't mention anything for method attribute for this one, so the default one will be a get. If you try to mention it as a method is equal to get, so then it will be submitted. So normally that one is the what I can say, normally it is an a default one. So if I try to mention the post, so the form or the post data, if you try to mention it, so it will try to submit it using the request body. If I try to submit the same thing, so if I try to write it here, okay, here I will try to write it, and here I will try to 32, and if I click on this one, so here the page is trying to submit in a post data. So as right now the page doesn't accept the post request, so we'll be so it is trying to submit using the post data. So what is the usage of this post data is when you are trying to send the sensitive data like password or anything, credit card number, these things, when you are trying to send it, so it is better to use this post request. Okay, and if you are trying to use this get request, so when you are trying to use this get request means, so when you are using something like search queries and all those things, you can use this get request. So normally in the get method, the form data will be appended to the action URL. So whatever the action URL, we'll try to learn about this action URL also, to the URL as with a question mark separator. So that is the thing. And if you try to see the post method, so in the post method you will be able to see the request body. And apart from this method post and the get, we also have another type is nothing but a dialog. So this dialog, so when we will be using this dialog is when you think that your form is in a dialog mode, so then instead of submitting the form, what it will try to do is this one will try to close this dialog. So without submitting the data or clearing the form, it will try to close the dialog form and throws a submit event on submission. So these are the three types of HTML method we are having. And the another one what I want to learn is what I want you to tell is action attribute. So what is this action attribute? So this action attribute is nothing but what I can say is the URL that process the form submission. So when you are trying to send this form data to your separate URL means, so we will be using this action. For example, let's say that I want to send this all the things as a get request to the google.com. So now you can use https www.google.com here. Now the form, whatever the data you are writing in this form, it will try to submit to the google.com with a get parameter, with a get method. So get request means what it will try to do, it will try to send it using the question mark in the action URL. Action URL means nothing but that is a google.com. Now if I try to write it here, the valid data, and here I can write the valid data, and if I try to submit it, so it will go to the google.com, so with all the query param, whatever the form data we are having as a GET request, it will try to send the data. Okay. And the another one what we are having is another important thing you need to understand is the Enc type. So that is nothing but the encryption type. So normally we will be having three types of encryption. First one is an application /x-ww-form-URL encoded. So this is the normal default one. So which if you don't mention the Enc type, it's a default one. So it will be sent, the data, that a form data will be sent as a URL encoded. The second format, the second one is the multi-part by form data. So you need to, this one is the very important thing, you need to use it, multi-part by form data. So now this is the form when we use it is, so multi-part by form data. When you are having an input label, for example, let's say that you are having an input label, so file. So if you are having input label of file, that is nothing but input type is equal to file. So if you are having a file, so that means the file data, the file need to be submitted through the form thing. So when you are trying to submit a file, that is nothing but it's not a text or anything, it's a resource. So it is having a physical the file you are having. So when you are trying to send this form file means, so you need to use this Enc type. So when you use this Enc type only, then only the form will be submitted. If you don't use this one, so the instead of submitting that physical file, the file name will be submitted to the server. By taking that file name text, what it will try to do, so it need to contain the file name, right, the entire content of the file. So we need to use this Enc type by multi-part by form data. And we have another type also, text/plain. So we use it introduced in the HTML5, that one. So we use it for the debugging purposes. So these are the three types of Enc encryption type that are available. Apart from these attributes, you will be having a name, form name. So you should maintain that the form name, which should be unique, that for all the forms. So you'll be having something like submit form, whatever the name you want, you can mention it. So this one. And also you have another attribute, that is nothing but no validate. For example, let's say that I don't want to validate. So we have written all the validation things and all those things we have written, right? I don't want all the validations to work. So now you can apply no validate to this form in a such way that when I try to submit this form, automatically without any validations or anything, it is trying to submit it to the google.com with empty values. That means whatever the validations we have written for each input box, those are not working because of this no validate. So now whenever you add a no validate attribute to this form element, then none of the form validations will work for the elements. So these are the things, these are the main things which you can learn it from the fine. So we have learned about the action, Enc type, method you have understood, no validate you have understood, and another one is the target. So you know about this target thing. So here you'll be having target is equal to self, which is the default value. Underscore blank means, so it will try to submit it in a new tab. So underscore parent means in the parent window, like that it will try to submit it. That's it. So these are the only main things which we can able to understand. So main things what you have to remember is the method. So you will be having get, post and dialog. So majorly we will be using the get and post, and the action to the file, here it will may be using the absolute file path or relative file path, you can use it. So to the actual file which you want to send it to send this form data. Enc type means encryption type. If you are using input type is equal to form file means, so you need to use this multi-part by form data, or otherwise you can leave it empty wherever, then the default value will be submitted. That is nothing but x-ww URL encoded. And if you want to give the name for this form means, you can give the unique name which doesn't match with other forms. And no validate means, if you don't want these validations to work means, you can give this to this form no validate, so that whatever the form controls that are existing inside this form, so those all does not follow the validations. So this is all about this form thing. Hope you understood about this form element and its attributes. So these are one of the important things when you are trying to submit the form. If you have any doubts or any suggestions, please post the comments below to this video. And if you like this video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel. Thank you.